Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Parikshit Uvacha Rajasthama Svabhavasya Brahman Vritrasya Papmana Narayane Bhagavati Katham Asidritam Mati. In this, King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahman, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritrasura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this material world, everyone is obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. However, unless one conquers these modes and comes to the platform of goodness, there is no chance of one's becoming a pure devotee. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda mohanir muktat bhajante mam drita brita. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. Since Vritrasura was among the demons, Maharaj Parikshit wondered, how is it possible for him to have become such an exalted devotee? King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahman, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritrasura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan? We are reading from Canto 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 14, entitled King Chichiketu's Lamentation, Text number 1. For the previous several chapters, Shukadeva Goswami has narrated the inconceivable story of the demon Vritrasura. How due to Indra's carelessness, he suffered, losing everything. And his entire dynasty and race of people had to follow the same course. How he appealed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his representative, Lord Brahma, and was given a chance to restore everything. But due to ingratitude, committed another offense. And the result was the birth of Vritrasura. We cannot fathom the horror of this personality. What he looked like, what he sounded like. There is no special effects animation that, with all the technology at hand in the 21st century, that could ever even give a semblance of who was this Vritrasura. His body covered the sky. He was the personification of anger. And he was the number one enemy of all the demigods. And the entire race of demons, asuras, stood behind him and made him their leader. And he faithfully led them forward. But then we find, in the midst of the battle with Indra, he's preaching pure Bhagavad Dharma to Indra. It's similar to Krishna speaking to Arjuna in Kurukshetra. Arjuna was supposed to do his duty to the Lord, but when he saw his relatives on both sides, and friends, his teacher, he became bewildered. He lost his courage. He lost his will. He stood in almost a paralyzed condition, pale white, trembling, crying. Krishna spoke transcendental knowledge to him at that time. Now here is Indra. He's fighting a war on behalf of the demigods, and the demigods represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vritrasura was like Duryodhana, in a sense that he was the king of a demoniac army. Indra was something like Arjuna, the main fighter. And he threw his weapon at Vritrasura, and Vritrasura just caught it effortlessly and threw it back and hit his elephant. His elephant fell back many feet and went to the ground and vomited blood. And Indra was thinking, impossible. He is the weapons that conquer anyone in this creation. He's dealing with like an insignificant toy. Indra lost his intelligence. He lost his will to fight. He was trembling. He was pale white. He considered it hopeless. And Vritrasura preached Bhagavad Dharma to give Indra the will to fight, do his duty to God. And in his preaching, he was manifesting his 100% pure devotion and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had absolutely no attachment to his body, to anything he possessed. He had no false ego. He simply wanted to serve the Lord according to the Lord's wish, and he was looking forward to dying and going back to Godhead. And he did. He entered into Mahasamadhi, meditating on the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, completely. Even though Indra was in the process for a long time of cutting off his head, it didn't disturb Vritrasura's meditation on the Lord even for a second. Now we're chanting japa, One little mosquito disturbs our concentration. Yes? Can you imagine? Having Indra with his thunderbolt cutting off your head? And taking about a year to do so? Vritrasura didn't even know what was happening. He was so totally absorbed in meditating on Krishna. Incredible. A demon who looks like a demon, who associates with demons. Parikshit Maharaj wanted to try to make sense of this inconceivable mystery. This happened in previous yuga also, where generally, according to a person's birth, their gunas and karmas are very much according. And a person's association. How is it? Parikshit Maharaj is asking. In other words, he's asking, why did the Lord stage a pastime like this? As we have spoken in previous classes on this particular subject of Vritrasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can fulfill many purposes through any single thing that he wants to do, either personally or through his devotees, or with his devotees. Now this story of Vritrasura is a major part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The coming chapters of how he became a demon, Chitraketu, the whole story of Indra and his falling down and the battles. It's many, many chapters. And the Paramhamsa Samhita. When Shukadev Goswami was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, he had 7 days to speak. And this is the crest jewel of all Vedas. He's taken the essence. Nigama kalpataror galitam palam sukhamukaramrita dravya samyatam. He's taken the real nectar, Shukadev Goswami. Not a single syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam is in relation to Artha Kama Dhamma or even moksha. It's the highest literature. So Sukadev Goswami took the most important lessons of history, not only in this universe, but he took the most important lessons of history of various lifetimes of Brahma, from various universes. It's a very selective essence. This is what Srimad Bhagavatam is about. To dedicate so many chapters to this story means it is very, very essential for everyone to understand these lessons who want to attain pure devotional service. That is why Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he insisted you begin at the very, very first sloka of Srimad Bhagavatam and study it deeply. Because every word of the Bhagavatam is saturated with Krishna's mercy. And then by the time you get to the 10th canto, you'll actually be in a condition of consciousness where you can access what is Krishna's Leela from within your heart. And you must study the Srimad Bhagavatam from a person Bhagavatam. Shushusho Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtana Sevan. And you must render humble service to such great souls. It is a science. One of the lessons we're learning here is the Lord's inconceivable will is oftentimes incomprehensible to our intelligence. Things are not always black and white. Things are not always according to the departmental categorization that we would like them to be. The pure devotees of the Lord are so surrendered that they are willing to do anything and everything the Lord wants them to do. Srila Prabhupada prayed on Jaladuta. He didn't say, make me a great guru. He didn't say, make me the founder acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He didn't even say, let me do my work and then go back to Godhead. He asked, let me be your puppet and make me dance as you want me to dance. This is a pure devotee. Simply wants to be the Lord's puppet. You can use me any way you feel I can do the best service. In whatever way you like. Ashlisya vapadaratham panashtu mama darshanam maramahatam karotu va yathata tatha vitatatu lam tato mat pranananastu saeva napara. This is the conclusion of Shikshastakam. Dear Krishna, you can do with me anything you like. You can make me blissful by embracing me, or you can make me suffer miserably by not being present before me. Or you can humiliate me by trampling upon me. A devotee doesn't mind being humiliated before the whole world and understood by no one. If that is the will of the Lord, that is called love, pure love. The Lord has a message. The Lord has a mission. And He utilizes His most surrendered devotees for that purpose. In one lecture on Narasingha Chaturdasi, Srila Prabhupada is gratefully thanking Hiranyakashipu. He's praising him. If it wasn't for Hiranyakashipu, there would have been no Narasimhadev manifested on this earth. And what would the earth be without Lord Narasimhadev? And who is Hiranyakashipu? Who is Ravana? Who is Shishupal and Kumbhakarna and Hiranyaksha, Dandakaran, Dandavakra? Devotees. Great devotees at the gateway of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay. Now the Lord had message that we shouldn't offend devotees. Same principle. The 4 Kumaras do not look like great sages. In fact, if any of you were to see the 4 Kumaras this afternoon, if they came into the temple, the security guards may stop them. According to Radha Gopinath's rules, you have to wear clothes to enter this temple. Go home and tell your mother to put some diapers on you and then come back. Yes, definitely the security guards would stop them. They wouldn't even let them through the metal detector. And if any of you were watching, you would have said, yes, yes, go home, let your mother put some clothes on you. Hare Krishna. You cannot recognize. So how could we blame Jai and Vijay? We couldn't recognize. They also couldn't recognize. They're not just coming to the temple to come to a class. They want entrance into Vaikuntha. You go home when you grow up and become a pure devotee then. So they were cursed to be demons. Jai and Vijay made a mistake, but it wasn't, they were actually just surrendered devotees acting as puppets of the Lord. Their mistake was a lesson to us. Don't judge a person simply by their external appearance. Don't offend anybody because you don't know who they are. It could mean your spiritual destruction if you offend someone. That's a great lesson. So here's Hiranyakashipu, a great devotee, acting like Hiranyakashipu. Now there's a difference between Vritrasura and Hiranyakashipu. They're simultaneously one and different. The oneness is they're both great devotees who are in the roles of demons. The difference is Vritrasura knew exactly that he was a devotee and loved Krishna, even though he was fighting and destroying Krishna's devotees like anything and stepping on them and trampling on them and terrorizing them. He knew he was a devotee and he knew he was doing it only for Krishna's pleasure. Hiranyakashipu, under Yogamaya's potency, hated Vishnu. He hated Krishna from his heart. He wasn't just pretending to hate Krishna. He really hated Krishna. And he hated Prahlad because of his love for Krishna. He didn't know he was a devotee. He was really dreaming. Here he is, a devotee from the gateway of Vaikuntha, who forgets everything about and just really thinks he's a demon. Absolutely contaminated by arrogance and lust and greed. But in truth, they're both just puppets of the Lord, just acting as the Lord wants them to act. Now, how many people have spoken horribly about Hiranyakashipu since the Satya Yuga when this happened? But Srila Prabhupada's thanking him in a public lecture. Shriman Hiranyakashipu. He's thanking him. Because Prabhupada prayed to be a puppet. It takes one to know one. He understood Hiranyakashipu was just a puppet of the Lord to create the most dramatic stage performance in which the main star, Narasimhadev, could appear and attract the hearts of the whole world. And even great personalities cannot always identify such a puppet in the hands of the Lord. Pundarik Vidyanidhi, the greatest devotee. He descended from the spiritual world of Goloka. He's Srimati Radharani's father, Vrishabhanu Maharaj, who lives as a simple cowherd man in Braj. Mukunda Dat, his native place was Chattagam or Chattagram in East Bengal. And he knew Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So he turned to Gadadhar Pandit. And who is Gadadhar Pandit? Srimati Radharani in a devotee form. The most simple, pure-hearted, renounced Vaishnava. Mukunda Dat said to Gadadhar Pandit, I know that you find great pleasure meeting with Paramhamsa Vaishnavas, great souls who love Krishna. I want to bring you to one today. Oh, Gadadhar Pandit was so excited. They went to Pundarik Vidyanidhi's house in Navadvip, where he was visiting. And Gadadhar Pandit couldn't believe what he was seeing. He was a brahmachari at the time. And here's Pundarik Vidyanidhi wearing beautiful silken clothes, with very finely combed hair, with lots of fragrant, expensive oils rubbed into it, and sitting on wonderful silk sheets and pillows, and jewelry, and men on each side of him fanning him with chamaras. He's chewing spices and looking at his own beauty in the mirror. Now, brahmacharis, what would you do if you were brought to such a person? You would probably run away. Gadadhar Pandit was confused. He didn't say anything. Because Gadadhar Pandit's a Vaishnava. He would never offend anyone. He didn't say a word, but in his mind he was thinking, why has Mukunda brought me to him? This man is so, in such an exaggerated way, materialistic. He's just surrounded by sense gratification. So much vanity? Why did he bring me here? What kind of devotee is this? Why did Pundarik Vidyanidhi dress like this? Why did he act like that? He was just the puppet of the Lord. He had a purpose to serve by doing like that. And even Gadadhar couldn't recognize him. Even Gadadhar misunderstood him. Then Mukunda began to sing a beautiful sloka that Uddhava chanted from Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the inconceivable, unlimited mercy of Krishna to the fallen souls, even to the wicked demons. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi couldn't control himself and bursted into an explosion of ecstatic prema, love of God. Then Gadadhar Pandit understood. And he said to Mukunda, you saved my life. In my mind, I was criticizing this person. I made an offense. The only way I can atone for this offense is I must surrender to him and accept him as my spiritual master. Hare Krishna. There is a story of Bhishma. Such a great soul. Why he chose to fight with the Kurus? He was the most powerful warrior on earth. He was undefeatable even by the 5 Pandavas. He had such prowess, and he demonstrated it on one day of the Battle of Kurukshetra. He destroyed a major portion of the entire Pandava army single-handedly. And Yudhisthira and the Pandavas knew tomorrow we're finished. He'll destroy the rest of our army, and there's nothing we can do. Even the Pandavas standing before Bhishma, it's like standing before a tsunami wave or a cyclone with a bow and arrow. When he got in that passion to fight, nothing and no one could stop him. Even Parasuram, the Lord himself, could not stop him when they were fighting together. Why Bhishma took the side of the Pandavas? Of the Kurus, against the Pandavas. He's a great devotee of Krishna. He knew everything. He knew the insides and the outsides of the crooked, wicked envy of Duryodhana. He witnessed how Duryodhana was trying to murder the Pandavas again and again, cheated them. From an external point of view, it's said because he was honoring the king. Whether the king is right or wrong, you have to honor the king and be faithful to the king. He was taking all the facilities of the Kuru dynasty. Duryodhana was king, so he was obliged. But Bhishma, it's due to him that Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana had that position. Why? Srila Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a surrendered puppet of the Lord. Let me be misunderstood. Let me be on the demoniac side. Let me be against your devotees. Whatever you want to teach to the world through me, I am your puppet. I am your servant. Cannot recognize. And in the end, Krishna revealed to the world. Just like in the end, he revealed Vritrasura's glories to the world. Neither of them were really exposed for their supreme glories until the verge of death. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to the West, he writes in his book, Chaitanya Charitamrita, that associates of Lord Chaitanya are being born in the Western world just to help his mission to spread all over the world. Now when these associates of Lord Chaitanya were coming into 26 Second Avenue and other temples in those days, many of them, they were addicted to sinful activities. They weren't like just associates pretending to be to be hippies. They were hippies. They were taking drugs, having illicit sex, eating meat their whole life from the mother's womb on. Even cows. Most of these devotees, they were eating cows. They didn't even know it was wrong. What would the Brahmins, the Smarta Brahmins think? Giving the sacred thread to someone who has been eating cows for 25 years? Huh? Just a couple years later? Hardly. They had no conception of God. They didn't take baths. One devotee, Prabhupada wrote a formal letter. He said he is an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya. He was a hippie a few years before. Who could know? The Lord wants to serve a purpose. He can send anybody into any situation. The Lord's devotees simply want to be a puppet in whatever way you like. And the theme of this class that we're trying to extract from this verse particularly is a particular statement Prabhupada made on several occasions about not only devotees, but even people who come to the temple. Do not mistreat them. You do not know who they may be. A person may be a great devotee with stocks and heaps of devotional credits from his previous life or her previous life. and may come to the temple with some anarthas that they're somehow or other living through in this life. If you offend them, you're offending a great devotee. Hare Krishna, you don't know who they are. So we have to be very careful. But another lesson is the glory of a Vaishnava. And the glory of Krishna's love for a Vaishnava. Here is Chitraketu. In the coming chapters, the classes will go into great detail about his Leela. Chitraketu Maharaj, he was a pious religious king who had too much attachment to family life, lamented like anything because he had no son. When the great sages and rishis came to his house, he didn't beg for pure love of God, he begged for a son. He got a son, created envy amongst the other co-wives. They murdered the son died, and he suffered. Nobody could understand how much he suffered. He really, really suffered. He was tormented. Mental suffering is so excruciating. Rarely do people commit suicide because of severe physical suffering. But very often, especially in this age of Kali, people commit suicide because of mental suffering. Depression is the number one reason for such a sinful act as suicide, where you just don't even want to live. Such anguish he was in. He couldn't do anything except lament. And then by the mercy of the Vaishnava Narada Muni, he was enlightened. And he surrendered everything to Krishna. And in his pure devotional service, in his surrender, somehow or other he made a slight mistake. And he was cursed by the goddess of material energy, the consort of Shiva, Parvati. How would you like to be cursed directly by goddess Parvati? That's a serious curse. It's not like there's a question of whether that curse will take effect or not. Sometimes people curse us. I curse you to die, or I curse you to lose everything, or I curse your nose to fall off. Who takes those curses seriously? Just, I'll chant Hare Krishna, and Krishna will protect me. But Goddess Parvati curses you to be a demon and go to hell. That's your destiny. He accepted. He was a surrendered soul. He was a puppet of the Lord. He understood Krishna was speaking through Parvati. Great souls, they hear Krishna. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he had a heart attack. He was very sick in New York, I believe it was. So the devotees just got some doctor. It wasn't like he was a real high-class doctor. I think it was a Sunday or something, and they somehow got some doctor to come over. And the doctor said to Prabhupada, your problem, Swamiji, is you pray too much. Now, what is the disciples going to think? Brahmananda, Prabhu, he has big fists. It's big everything, but it's... they didn't like this. The doctor's telling Prabhupada, the problem with you, Swamiji, is you pray too much. The devotees were very disturbed with this doctor. Prabhupada said, no, Krishna is speaking through him. Now, he wasn't even a devotee. He wasn't a sage. He was just a totally mundane, sinful person in New York City who said to Prabhupada, you pray too much. You need to walk. Prabhupada said Krishna is speaking through him. And that's where the whole tradition of morning walks, where some of the most precious jewels of knowledge were manifested during those morning walks. And it all came through just a doctor. Prabhupada heard Krishna's voice through him. When His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami was in a debate with some other devotees in Mayapur, and Prabhupada completely took side against him. Not against him as a person, but he took the side with the grihastas, against the sannyasis, who Tamal Krishna Goswami was the leader. He just made a statement, which is a common statement in America. If everything goes wrong and you're just willing to give up everything, you say, I might as well go to China. Because it's the most far away in those days. Now you can take planes to China. But in those days, China was the most far away, remote part of the universe. So it's just, I might as well just go to China. And Prabhupada said, yes, Krishna is speaking through you. You go to China. Prabhupada never talked about anyone going to China before that I heard of. And Prabhupada was serious. He said, no, you must go. You have no other service. You go to China. I'm taking everything away. You go to China. And he went. And now there's thousands of people becoming Krishna conscious in China. It's one of the most growing places of our movement in the world. In Mayapur this year, many, many people from China came. And the devotees were astounded by how completely they were taking to the Vaishnava culture. The philosophy, their lifestyle, their etiquette, their mannerisms were like perfect Vaishnavas. Prabhupada heard Krishna's voice. So in Krishna consciousness, we should be aware that Krishna is achintya, he is inconceivable. Now someone like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, his whole life was praying and begging to be an instrument of Prabhupada's mercy. Krishna made him speak those words. And Prabhupada heard it. Everyone else just took it as an ordinary expression of frustration. But Krishna spoke through him because he was Krishna's puppet. And Prabhupada, because he was the supreme puppet of Krishna, he recognized that voice and took it so seriously. So this beautiful story is showing us how Chitraketu made a mistake, apparently, and he was given an unbelievable curse to have a hellish existence as a demon. Now, what devotee would want a curse like that? He was grateful. He was a puppet. If that's what you want me to do, Krishna, I'll do it. No problem. And Krishna, since he had to be a demon anyway, Krishna created this entire Leela of Indra and everything else just to give this devotee who had to be a demon eternal glory as a demon. He was cursed to be a demon. Krishna orchestrated this wonderful pastime so he can teach the entire world for all time to come pure devotional service in the form of a demon. This is Krishna's love for his devotee. And this was the devotee's love for Krishna. This is the subject of Srimad Bhagavatam. the absolute love and surrender of a devotee and the absolute love and reciprocation of Krishna. So please, devotees may be passing through difficult times, but they may be very, very, very great personalities. Be careful how you deal with them. We don't know who they are. And every advanced senior devotee we have today, some years back, was not a devotee, at least visibly. And then the next stage they became new devotees, junior to everyone. But gradually through the process of Krishna consciousness and the mercy of the Guru and Vaishnavas and Krishna, the wealth of their bhakti just develops and manifests. When they're new, or when they're young devotees and they're making mistakes, it's easy to just, I'm better than you. But a few years later, you may be regretting what you have done. Because Krishna sees. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made the process of Krishna consciousness very simple. This is in the past time where Advaitacharya took the role of a Mayavadi. I was teaching Yoga Vasishta from a Mayavadi's point of view. Now this is amazing. For a person who didn't know Advaitacharya intimately, they would just think he was a Mayavadi, because he was preaching Mayavad. Which is better? Devotion to Krishna or impersonal or impersonalism? He said, in all times, in all situations, in all cases, all the scriptures ultimately declare that impersonalism is better. So he answered the question. And he had all these students there listening. They didn't know exactly what his inner consciousness was. He says, impersonalism is like the eyes, and devotional service is like a mirror. What is the use of a mirror without eyes? Hare Krishna. Now Lord Chaitanya heard this, and he became so angry, he started beating. He dragged Advaitacharya off his high seat where he was giving his teachings. He beat him. And Advaitacharya was so happy. That was his goal, to get beaten by the Lord. And after this wonderful pastime, Lord Chaitanya declared to the whole world that you will become perfect and go back to Godhead if you just chant Hare Krishna and do not criticize others. Because every living being is part of Krishna. And we don't know who that person may be. Even if a person is demoniac, he might actually be a devotee. Just going through some special purification or karma. One wonderful devotee I used to know, his first association with other devotees was beating them up. He would see them on Nam Sankirtan, he would think, who are these nonsense people with shaved heads, wearing dresses, dancing in the streets of New York? He used to fight with them physically. But somehow or other, by associating in that way, he became a devotee. Hare Krishna. He became a great devotee, a sannyasi. Of course, he got beat up sometimes just to get cleansed of that of that karma. Well, what does that mean? He was actually a devotee from a previous life. Somehow or other he was covered over by the inconceivable arrangement of the Lord. So obviously we must maintain certain standards, we must maintain certain rules, we must discriminate who we are going to associate with and who not to, but we should not offend anyone. We should understand, I don't know who this person is. I know that what he's doing now or what she's doing now, I have to be a little careful because but we have to deal with them with a certain grace. Amanina manadena. If you want to chant the holy name properly, you must offer respect to others and expect none in return. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Yes, Govinda Prabhu. Who knows who this Govinda Prabhu is? When he came to this temple, he was so spaced out.
I'm still spaced out.
Do you know what spaced out is? It means he was really absent-minded and nobody took him serious. No one. People would just treat him like just a new little boy coming from a village. And all those people who treated him like that, they're all gone. They all went back to their villages. And Govinda Prabhu is now he's traveling around the world inspiring people with Hari Katha, Hari Kirtan. Huh? Yes. Nobody understands his tattva. Yes.
Maharaj, what is the role of discipline? Because in the name of discipline we sometimes mistreat. Or else in the institutionalized way, like in the ashram or in the temple, there are certain rules and regulations. There are certain parameters which devotees have to follow. And if we see, if people are not practicing, we react in two ways. We say, oh, must be a great devotee and we don't discipline. And the things become very watered down. Or else we react an extreme way by disciplining them and mistreating them. So how do we balance? Because there is always a confusion. That
yes, it is very complicated actually. I can cite many such examples. There was one where I lived previously, many years ago. There was one devotee. He was so different. He would be on a roof in the winter, covered with snow. And he'd see, a sannyasi come by, and he would just scream out, my obeisances to you, and he would just fall flat, dandavats, and slide off the roof onto the ground. We saw it with these eyes. And then he's all, bloody and everything, and he just goes back to work. Or in a muddy place, it's storming rain, it's muddy, he's just outside. Sannyasi goes by, my obeisances to you, and he just falls, not goes down on his knees, just falls like a stick, falls right in the mud. He's totally soaked in mud from head to his clothes are saturated. And he goes back to work. Huh? These are the normal things that he would do. And the devotees thought that he was an avaduta. So they were actually honoring him and almost worshipping him as an avadhuta. But then some years later, we found out that he had mental illness. And he was in a mental hospital. That's the only way he could survive, is under the care of a mental hospital. He wasn't an avadhuta. He was mentally ill. But devotees just wanted to see him as being advanced. So that was their vision, until it just became out of control. So, that is a lack of discrimination. If a person is misbehaving, causing harm to him or herself and causing harm to others, then, we must discriminate. Especially in a place like an ashram or temple where certain codes of conduct are necessary to be followed for our own benefit and to not disturb the spiritual welfare of others. But they should be enforced, even if it's necessary to be strict. It should be with compassion. It should not be in an egoistic, judgmental way, and it should not be with harshness. Prabhupada could chastise a person, but it was always with love, always with respect, always with compassion. And sometimes devotees were very, very, very disturbed about how another devotee was doing their devotional service in a different way. Prabhupada would give that person his own space so he wouldn't disturb other devotees. But he would engage them in devotional service because he saw that they were sincere. They just had a different vision. Yes? So we have to be very careful. We have to maintain the standards with proper discriminatory quality, but at the same time we have to do it in a way that we're honoring and respecting that person as a Vaishnava also. It should be done with dignity. You could beat a person up and throw them out of the temple door if they're misbehaving, or you could say, Prabhu, we're sorry, but you cannot stay here any longer. And there's nothing more to discuss. And we will offer you all best wishes and prayers to improve. In any way we can help you improve, but you cannot live here now. There's a difference. Does that answer your question? But at the same time, that person who may be having troubles now, who may not be fit, you may be touching his lotus feet after some years. Yes? He may be like you. Govinda Prabhu was the most insignificant person amongst many. Not many, a few. And they treated him like nothing, nobody. It took years for devotees to understand what was his sincerity, what was his devotion, what was his surrender. He never did anything wrong. He was just, literally, he would do things that were not so sensible. But he always had the right motivation. And Krishna sees the purpose in which everything is being done for him. And ultimately, even if we make mistakes, if our purpose is sincere and we're willing to rectify, Krishna is going to uplift us and empower us. That is the reality. Our beloved Stoka Krishna Prabhu, he was really spaced out. And, the brahmacharis they didn't know whether to take him serious or not for many years, yes? But like Vritrasura, when it came close to death, he revealed such exalted spiritual qualities. He even had difficulties in his devotional service. He had some serious difficulties. And some devotees were losing their respect for him because he wasn't really so strong. But his purpose was sincere. Even though he was struggling and losing some of the battles, his purpose was very, very sincere. And in the end, some of the staunchest brahmacharis were crying. If only we could be as renounced as him. In that painful condition where he's about to lose everything at such a young age, he only had gratitude and happiness in his heart that Krishna gave me the chance to serve him. Krishna gave me the chance to chant his holy name. I didn't deserve it. I have no attachment for anything. All I want is just to serve. That was genuine. The same devotees who were his superiors, who used to chastise him, who used to criticize him in their minds, were touching his feet because they realize he's better than me. He's going back to Godhead. I don't know where I'm going. Huh? And when these hippies came in to Prabhupada, he saw what they were doing, what their conceptions were, and what their misconceptions were. But he gave them the chance. And for a person to become so completely surrendered and so empowered so quickly means that person had tremendous spiritual credits from his past life, but they were totally unmanifested until they came in contact with a pure devotee. A couple years, just 2-3 years after a devotee is just living like that, Prabhupada's saying he's an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya. This is the glory of a Vaishnav. Let me be your puppet, my Lord, and use me as you like. And this is the Lord's will, to utilize his devotee in such a way for the welfare of everyone. And as far as all of us are concerned, we have to be very careful not to commit offenses, not only to Vaishnavas, but to anyone. Because practically every Vaishnav that you know today was not a Vaishnav sometime before. So don't commit offenses to non-devotees. Don't commit offenses to devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I will send you back home, back to Godhead. Just do not criticize others and chant the holy name. Even Vritrasura. Beautiful, beautiful instruction. And the following narration is to reveal to Parikshit Maharaj in his confusion and to the whole world, how is it that such a demon Was such a Paramhamsa great devotee? We don't know the story behind anybody of why they're acting what they are, even if they're acting not right. There may be a reason for that. Parikshit couldn't understand. Gadadhar Pandit couldn't understand. But it was revealed. Yes, Sridhama Prabhu.
Maharaj, sometimes, just continuing the question of Govind Prabhu, we are in a situation where certain devotees are going through very, very serious problems in their spiritual life. And we had complete faith in them. And for years, they were externally doing their Krishna consciousness, but it comes to be known to us that he is going through serious problems, and he has been, over the years, seriously cheating the devotees. In one sense, putting a garb of a devotee. So it is very difficult to really put a faith in a devotee, and with the thing that you have told us to really not be very it's very difficult to apply this principle because we have lost the faith in that devotee, Maharaj. So how do we really apply this principle that you are teaching us today when somehow that we have lost the faith in the devotee because of what he has done?
If a devotee has offended others by his or her misconduct or misrepresenting Krishna consciousness, either by deed or by words, then it is our duty, unless we could really help them and restore the proper conception in their lives, unless we really can help them, we're not supposed to have faith in them. We're not supposed to associate with them. We have to protect ourselves, and we have to protect others from that. But at the same time, internally, we should know that we cannot that this person has done a lot of wonderful service. And even if this person is misleading others and fallen and everything else, they're going to be punished for that. But still, they're devotees. They've done much service. Whatever maya a person does is temporary. Whatever devotional service is eternal. Neha vikramanasosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Any endeavor on the path of bhakti is eternal. It's never lost. And any endeavor on any other path is temporary. It gets its reaction and then it's gone. So a person does great service for many years, everything that person done is eternal. It can never be lost. A person does offenses after that, may fall down from Krishna consciousness, may lose their intelligence, may lose their faith temporarily, may mislead others, may hurt others, may cheat others. And they're going to have to pay the price. Maybe even more than a karmi would, because they knew better. But it's all going to be washed away in due course of time, all their offenses. And underneath it all is the great treasure of all the service they have done. So we have to have a balanced view of how to see them and how to deal with them. We do the needful, but at the same time, we keep within our heart of hearts that understanding that although this person may be doing abominable acts, they still may be very dear to Prabhupada and Krishna. Prabhupada and Krishna may be angry as fire on them now, but still, because of what they've done, they're very dear to their hearts. Yes? If somebody offends others and misleads others, Prabhupada will be angry like fire on them. But if they've done service, he loves them. He loves them specially because of the service they've done. And this holds true for all generations of Vaishnavas within our society. So somehow or other, we have to have a realistic vision in dealing with these situations. We have to balance the two. According to our position, we may have to put restrictions. We may have to make punishments even. Because it's necessary for that devotee, for the protection of others, for the dignity of our society. Maybe. Or we may just have to, if we're not in a position of leadership to make those decisions, we just have to keep our distance and not be contaminated by that energy, because it will destroy our life if we're contaminated by that energy. Yes? There were people in Prabhupada's times who were very close associates of his who started preaching philosophy contrary to his and misleading devotees. And Prabhupada was like fire. He even externally sometimes had to reject them, just to protect the dignity of others. But we know internally that it's all temporary. Prabhupada loves them. Yes? So we should do the needful to deal with their anarthas. But we should also know that there's a whole other level between that person and Krishna that we can't see, that we can't necessarily understand. And internally, vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Does that make sense? Api chet sudaracharo bhajate man ananyabhak. Sadhur eva samantavya. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, even if a person engages in abominable activities, if he's engaged in devotional service, he's to be considered saintly. Now one of Prabhupada's dear godbrothers, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he explained this verse from a very, very beautiful point of view. He said what Krishna is also saying in this verse is if a devotee is engaging in abominable activities, the person who sees them as saintly, that person is saintly. Haribol. Prabhupada gave a very simple instruction in this regard. You can offer obeisances in your heart to Krishna in the heart of a tiger, but you don't embrace him. So if a devotee is misbehaving like that, keep your distance, because he can destroy your spiritual life. But still, we can offer obeisances in our hearts and pray for that person. The nature of a devotee is they may have to do the needful as far as protection and administration. But a devotee's prominent characteristic internally is praying for the salvation of that devotee. Nityananda Prabhu was praying for the salvation of Jagai and Madhai. So these are the two roles we have to play simultaneous. We have to be a well-wisher praying for the welfare of others, but at the same time we have to make the proper discriminatory decisions for the welfare of ourselves and our society. And if it's imbalanced either way, there could be offenses and a lot of trouble. So really, Krishna consciousness is about becoming very mature and very serious. And Krishna empowers us with that when he sees us that we really want to be his puppet. And in that spirit, we chant the holy name. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.